Alrighty, welcome back. I'm here with Rebecca Wilson from Rebecca Wilson Nutrition, talking all things nutrition related. You can find everything you need to know about Bex and her services over at
www.rwnutrition.co.nz.
Awesome. I'll post a link below about it anyway. She's also got a good Facebook page that she posts a lot of good relevant and not so mainstream articles on, which is really cool to see as well. So the next question we have got here is from Steve about salt. He says that a high carbohydrate diet is required for athletes, which is very correct, and particularly for endurance sports. There are a lot of recommendations about getting sufficient quantities of carbohydrates involved processed foods such as bread, cereals, bars, which are loaded with salt. Is this counteracted by the amount of sweating you do? And otherwise, shouldn't it be quite easy to overload on salt? So I suppose this brings up a couple of questions. First of all, let's talk about salt or sodium and why it is important, and alternatively, why it can be dangerous or negative.
And I guess this is where, I have to wear two hats, so public health dietitian as well as a sports dietitian, and it depends population what you're talking to, what message comes out. So for, the general population, people that are maybe exercising for 30-60 minutes a day, then trying to reduce salt intake is important. So it does have an effect on our blood pressure, which is one of our risk factors for cardiovascular disease. And stroke. So whereas athletes, you put a different hat on, because athletes, sodium, it does affect your blood pressure, but it also has a role in transporting things in and out of cells, so our muscles and things like that. So in athletes as well, we're exercising, for quite a bit more time. When we're sweating, salt's our main electrolyte in our sweat as well. So for athletes, we will be losing a lot more salt than the general population, so therefore our messages there can be a wee bit different.
Cool. So for an athlete, do they need to worry about limiting their salt intake so much for their health?
Again, case-by-case basis, without knowing the person in particular and their medical background. But most of the time, if athletes are having a well-balanced diet, your carbohydrates don't necessarily just have to come from breads and bars and things like that. You've got your starchy vegetables and your rice and things like that as well. Most of your salt in your diet is going to come from packaged foods. And again, if you're an athlete that's training for very long periods of the day, the high training load, or you're racing, then you sometimes are going to have to rely on those packaged foods and more refined foods to get the amount of carbohydrate that you need. But you'll be sweating out the sodium with that as well.
Oh, cool. Would there be a time where an athlete needs to supplement with sodium?
In everyday, day-to-day, no, generally not. Sometimes, if I've got athletes that are going into endurance events, I will recommend, as part of their carbohydrate load, and the day before that, they also eat salty foods or include electrolytes in their drinks to help them hold on to the fluid. So electrolyte or sodium does help us hold on to our fluid, which is important for hydration, and then during the race and after, just to help replace the electrolytes that you sweat out, because otherwise it can be quite dangerous, particularly if you're sweating out a lot or taking on a lot of water without sodium. You can get something called hyponatremia, which can be quite harmful to your health and life-threatening.
Cool. So during and potentially before an event, yes, we need to make sure we've got that sodium on board so we retain that fluid. But day to day, we're going to get enough through our diet that we're not going to need to supplement.
Our Western diet gives us plenty,
Fantastic. I guess that sort of answers the question about salt, would you say?
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to add about sodium, salt, electrolytes?
I think one important thing to remember is that the main electrolyte in our sweat is salt. So sometimes we get a bit carried away with potassium and magnesium and all those sorts of things, but at the end of the day it's that sodium. Sodium's the main one that we're going to sweat out. And just bearing in mind that everyone's got different sweat rates and everyone's got different sodium concentrations in their sweat. You can tell if you're a salty sweater. If you're wearing something black, you'll see the white. So yeah, it's just remembering that sodium's that main electrolyte in the sweat that we're losing. So
and I think as well, I read some research somewhere that like it's quite well regulated within the body how much sodium you lose. So if you take in a lot of sodium, you're going to lose a lot of sodium because there's a lot of it to lose.
Yeah, our body's a really good equilibrium, so they do tightly regulate themselves. Sodium is one that is really, really tightly regulated, so it will always stay in a pretty tight range unless we're completely fluid loading ourselves.